So I'm Stefan Trömel. I'm the Senior Disability Specialist in the International Labour Organization, where we also coordinate the Global Business and Disability Network, the GBDN. The topic we will be speaking about today is both relevant, both ILO and ILO GBDN. The work that we do as disability team in the ILO is also about promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, and in particular the right to employment throughout the work of the ILO. And for instance, one of the departments with which we work is what we call in the ILO the Green Jobs Department. That is the department that is involved in climate change negotiations, with a very strong focus on the employment aspect of climate change, what we call either just transition or green jobs. And what we have been doing with them is to bring to their attention the needs to include in their work persons with disabilities. That has been, so that's an example of the work we do as disability team. We try to make sure that the ILO, in whatever it does, takes into account persons with disabilities. Look, what is happening now, I just come back from New York, where last week the big annual conference was held of the UN system on the rights of people with disabilities. And it was the first conference where there was a significant attention to the issue of climate change, climate action, and persons with disabilities. It has been until now had been an area that had been largely overlooked. Both had not been addressed by the climate change experts, and it also not been addressed adequately by the disability organizations and by those of us who work in the disability sector, for instance, also in the UN. And the good news is that is starting to change. Now, what came out of last week is a call to action that climate change discussions, like they happen in the context of COP27 now this year to be held in Egypt. These negotiations need to take into account persons with disabilities. Now, so we as ILO contribute to that overall visibility and awareness of disability, of the rights of persons with disabilities to be addressed in climate change discussions. But at the same time, we focus on our specific angle of that, which is the employment angle of climate change and the just transition. And that is the area that hopefully we will be able to pursue more, also in the context of the DHUB project, to strengthen the narrative of what does it mean to promote green jobs for persons with disabilities? What do we mean by green jobs? What are the skills that persons with disabilities need to acquire to be able to have access to green jobs? How can we make sure that they have access to these competences? So this is a bit, I think it's fair to say that we are at very early stages of that process, but I think we have now an opportunity there and sort of a commitment there from a number of states that expressed last week in New York that climate change needs to be more disability inclusive, and we need to take that overall opportunity, come with a more elaborate narrative on what do we exactly want to, what are we expecting from that disability inclusion in those discussions. One of the first, we have been working on this in the context of a working group that brings together development donors like Spain's ICID and other donors, UN entities, disability organizations, and other private donors. And the first thing that we did was we were aware that all these organizations, all of them work on climate change and all of them work on disability. But very rarely do these teams speak to each other. Yeah, that is one of the things we did in the ILO. That's why we come up with in our soon a policy brief on just transition produced jointly between our team and the Green Jobs Department. But that is exactly what needs to be happening in all organizations, no? That the climate change experts in the UN system, in development donors speak with the disability inclusion experts. And the same needs to happen also in the private sector. Again, we work, as I mentioned before, we work with disability champions in large companies like Spain's Repsol or Mafra and others. Most of these companies also work as probably I would dare to say that all of those companies also work on climate change. But the question would be for me, do these people that work on climate change in a big company speak to the people that work on disability? Probably not. And I would also dare to say that it's the disability champions that will need to reach out to their colleagues for that bridge to be established, for that dialogue to happen. So it's really, that is basically what we're trying to do, that to bring the disability inclusion angle into existing discussions that are happening within the UN, within the private sector, within government. And we feel that that move will need to come from those of us who work on disability. The experience so far of working with DHUB has been positive because it has helped us to create a narrative in specific areas. So far, we have done 2 reports directly between DHUB partners and ourselves. The first one was looking at the future of work from a disability angle, and the second one, which we launched early last year, was on the digital economy and persons with disabilities. And we are expecting a similar collaboration in the context of green jobs and just transition. On one hand, we are seeing an opening, as I mentioned before, of opportunities, but we need to be ready to present to these organizations we're trying to influence. We need to be able to present them with very specific recommendations and suggestions on what action needs to be taken for persons with disabilities to be able to benefit from the jobs that the green economy is creating. And we are still right now lacking that narrative. And I think this is the narrative that we hope to be establishing in the context of the DHUB project. And hopefully also in collaboration with the DHUB project, we want to see how to organize events and meetings with the key people that we need to influence and that are part of these mainstream discussions on disability, on climate change more generally, and just transition more specifically. So that's a bit our expectation from this partnership.